Whenever the economy gets shaky, we tend to look for answers from all the usual experts. But what if one of the most important warnings for our time doesn't come from the last decade or even the last century, but from 1,000 years ago? So, who was it? Who was the first major thinker to really sound the alarm, to argue that when you separate money from morality, society starts to rot from the inside out? Your first guess might be Adam Smith, the father of modern economics, or maybe Karl Marx, its most famous critic. Yeah, those are the usual suspects, the names we all learn in school. But the real answer? It's way more surprising. The answer is Abu Hamid al Ghazali. He was a Persian polymath who was writing about markets, money, and ethics a full 7 centuries before Adam Smith was even born. I mean, just let that sink in. Al-Ghazali was figuring this stuff out while most of Europe was still deep in the early Middle Ages. It's an incredible leap in thinking. Now, to really get what he was talking about, we've got to travel back in time. We need to step into his world, a place of unbelievable wealth and trade, but also a place with some deep anxieties about what all that prosperity really meant. This timeline really helps put his contribution into perspective. Way back, you had Aristotle, who basically saw money as just a practical tool for exchange. Simple. Much later, you get Adam Smith, who saw it as the engine of a whole new kind of economy. But right there in the middle, you have Al-Ghazali. For him, money was something much, much bigger. It was a moral force that could either build a society up or tear it right down. He was this incredible bridge between the ancient and the modern world. So his world, the Islamic Golden Age, was absolutely booming. Cities like Baghdad and Cairo were the New York and London of their day, huge centers of global trade. Silk, spices, wealth, it was all flowing in at a speed nobody had ever seen before. But with that boom came a huge problem: rising inequality. And that's when Al-Ghazali started asking this really crucial question: what happens when a civilization gets rich faster than it gets wise? And that question led him to one of his most revolutionary ideas, that money isn't just stuff you own. No, he said money is a mirror. It reflects the true health of a society. It has a moral purpose. And here's the core of it. For Al-Ghazali, money has zero value on its own. It's just like a mirror. It's only useful because of what it reflects. Its real power is in enabling trust and fair exchange between people. He saw it as a divine gift, something meant to serve society, not something to be worshipped as a god itself. And that core idea leads to one of his most powerful sayings. For money to actually do its job, it has to move, it has to flow. Any wealth that's just locked away, piled up for its own sake, becomes totally useless. It is, in his own words, dead money. The metaphor he used to explain this, wow, it's potent. He said that hoarded wealth is like freezing the bloodstream of society. Just think about that. Blood has to circulate to keep a body alive, right? Well, money needs to circulate through trade and wages and investment to keep a community healthy and alive. He pinpointed 3 main ways that money could become corrupted. First up, speculation. Manipulating prices or exploiting a crisis just to make a profit without creating any real value. Second, getting rich through deception, which he believed just rots a person's character. And finally, hoarding, which we just talked about, literally stopping money from doing its vital social job. But it wasn't just everyday people he was worried about. Oh no. Al-Ghazali also had a pretty stark warning for rulers in the state about their role in keeping the market fair, or destroying it. He was especially suspicious of the state's power to mess with money. He laid out this whole process of what he called currency debasement, which, by the way, sounds a lot like our modern anxieties about inflation. Here's how it works. First, a ruler secretly starts diluting the gold or silver in the coins. Pretty soon, the public catches on and completely loses faith in the money. Then trust, the absolute foundation of the economy, just evaporates. Trade breaks down, and finally, people ditch the local currency altogether and start using foreign money that they can actually rely on. To him, this wasn't just bad policy. It was theft, plain and simple. And come on, this isn't just some dusty old history lesson, right? This is a pattern we have seen over and over and over again. From the fall of ancient Rome, all the way to the devastating hyperinflation crises that have crippled modern economies. Al-Ghazali diagnosed the whole thing 1,000 years ago. All right, so let's bring this home. Let's talk about right now. Because his diagnosis of a society that's wrestling with its own wealth, well, it feels almost spookily relevant for the 21st century. Just think about it for a second. Fast-moving global capital that zips around the world in an instant? Check. Widening gaps between the rich and the poor? Check. A financial system that seems to reward speculation more than actual, tangible contribution? Yep. Fragile trust in our institutions? Absolutely. Constant, heated debates about currency and inflation? You bet. The parallels are just undeniable. It really feels like the core challenges haven't changed all that much. And all of this leaves us with one final, pretty heavy thought to chew on. Al Ghazali believed that a society could get through hardship. It could even survive poverty, but it could not survive systemic corruption and the total loss of trust that comes with it. So the question for us today, in a world that looks so much like his, is where is our moral compass pointed now?
Okay, we're going to do something a little different today. We're going to travel back in time, almost 1,000 years actually, to meet a philosopher who somehow understood our modern financial anxieties with just shocking clarity. His name was Al Ghazali, and I think his ideas might just change how you see money forever.
I mean, it's a huge question, right? It's something we're all wrestling with, whether you're on Wall Street or you're deep in the world of crypto. We tend to think about money as a thing, dollars, gold, digital tokens. But what if its real value, its true foundation, lies somewhere else entirely?
This is the core idea we're going to explore. Think about it like this. Money isn't just a tool for buying stuff. It's a mirror. It's reflecting our collective belief in each other, in our institutions. It's basically a scorecard for social cooperation. And when that trust shatters, well, so does the money.
So our guide on this journey is Abu Hamid al Ghazali. Now this guy was a theologian, a legal scholar, a major philosopher, but as we're about to see, he was also a brilliant economist who diagnosed the fundamental human forces that are still driving our world today.
Al-Ghazali's insights don't start with spreadsheets or complex algorithms. Nope, they start with the most basic, most volatile element of any economy. Us. People.
You see, his key insight was that you just can't separate economics from human nature. They're totally intertwined. People hoard money when they're afraid. They make risky bets out of greed. They cheat when they think no one's looking. And he argued that when those behaviors become the norm, the whole system is basically doomed to collapse.
And here's what's so incredible. Al-Ghazali was basically describing the core ideas of modern behavioral economics centuries before anyone even came up with the term. He just got it. He understood that we aren't these perfectly rational robots. Our incentives shape how we act, and if you build a system that rewards deception, well, you're going to get a very unstable, very deceptive market. So his solution wasn't just, oh, let's write some more rules. It was a whole system. He believed you needed fair laws, absolutely, but you also needed moral education, you needed psychology, you needed things to counteract our worst impulses. You had to build a culture of trust, not just a marketplace.
But building that culture of trust isn't just up to us as individuals, which brings us to a really crucial question. What's the government's role in all this?
For Al-Ghazali, the ruler's job was actually pretty limited, but it was absolutely vital. He had three main rules. First, protect the money. Keep it stable, keep it reliable. Second, make sure there's justice in the marketplace. And third, respect private property. Don't just go around taking people's stuff. That's it. That's the job.
Because the moment a government starts messing with the currency, that's a huge red flag. It's a signal that the trust that's holding everything together is starting to rot from the inside out. And he actually saw this happen with his own eyes. So imagine this scene. Al-Ghazali saw this play out. A ruler's short on cash, right? So he tells the mint to start mixing cheaper metals like copper into the pure gold coins. But then he declares that these new, junky coins have the same value as the old ones. But here's the thing. People aren't stupid. They figure out pretty fast that the new coins are junk. So what do? Of course, they hide the old pure gold coins. They stash them away. They keep the good money for themselves, and they only spend the new bad money. And just like that, poof, the good money completely disappears from circulation.
And this little story, it brilliantly illustrates a super famous economic principle. Bad money drives out good. We call it Gresham's Law today, named after some 16th century English financier. But Al-Ghazali described the exact same process nearly 500 years earlier. It's amazing.
And look, this isn't just some dusty old history lesson. We see the exact same thing play out today. When people lose faith in their national currency during a hyperinflation crisis, what do? They flee. They run to more stable assets, whether it's the US dollar or gold or, even cryptocurrency. The good money always drives out the bad.
But al Ghazali's vision went way beyond just preventing a total collapse. He wanted to create a thriving society. For him, it wasn't just about having sound money, it was about what we do with that money. So, al Ghazali had this idea about wealth that is pretty radical, even for today. He basically argued that wealth isn't really yours to just sit on. The wealthy are more like stewards, and they are obligated to use their resources to support the whole community. Hoarding it was, to him, a violation of that social contract.
So this meant wealth had to be put to work. It had to circulate. He championed systems like zakat, which is a mandatory almsgiving, and waqf, charitable endowments, specifically to fund public goods, things like roads, schools, hospitals, because wealth that's just locked away in a vault isn't doing anyone any good.
This also informed his famous critique of something called riba, or usury. Now for him, the problem wasn't just about charging interest. The deeper economic sin was allowing money to just make more money, all by itself, completely detached from any real-world production or labor or risk. And doesn't that sound eerily familiar? His argument is a direct parallel to modern debates about financialization, where our economy becomes dominated by speculative trading and complex financial instruments instead of by, making actual things or providing useful services. He called it profit without contribution. So, what can we take away from this 12th century philosopher as we try to navigate our own turbulent 21st century economy? What's the bottom line here? Well, it really boils down to 3 timeless lessons. First, money is and always will be a belief system. It's built on trust. Second, stagnant wealth is useless wealth. It has to move. It has to circulate to create value. And third, and this one's huge, a healthy society designs its rules to reward genuine contribution, not just clever exploitation.
Maybe his entire philosophy can be wrapped up in this one powerful quote. And for him, this wasn't just a moral statement. He saw it as an economic law. An economy doesn't collapse because the resources disappear. It collapses because the trust and the justice that bind a society together, they just disintegrate.
And that brings us right back to our central idea. If money really is a mirror, one that reflects the health of our society, our trust, our sense of fairness, our values, what do we see when we look at our own reflection today?